Yep.
Which brings me to this point, I guess, or this question or observation, whatever. The Doctor doesn't seem to have an outfit.
Nope.
Previous Doctors kind of have always had like almost like a costume,
Yep.
something that you could cosplay as if you wanted to. There was always variations. There were definitely plenty of episodes where the Doctor would dress up as something else, but there was always like this base costume that the Doctor would have. Pretty much every version of the Doctor, at least in the modern, and I think even if you go back to classic, I'm trying to think through them in my head. They kind of all had a look.
Yep. Yep.
Capaldi and Smith, I think, had two each. Like they kind of went half through, switched their look to something else, but they all had like this distinct look. But so far, Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor doesn't really have like we kind of thought when they released the initial images that some of the
Yep.
look we're like, oh, he had that. Remember, he had that like kind of orange blouse
Orange
kind of
shirt.
thing,
Yep.
yeah. And
Yeah.
he had in that look, and we're like, okay, that looks pretty cool. That's going to be his look. Well, he's every single episode now. Even this episode, he had what he initially was wearing was completely different than anything we had seen
Yeah.
before. Then he switched to his 60s clothes, which was completely different. So yeah, I think this Doctor's just not going to have a kind of go-to look or outfit. I think it's just he's gonna wear something different. I mean, he's getting into that closet and he's changing
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah. You're not alone in pointing that out. There was a tweet this week that I saw on my timeline where someone's like, "Isn't it interesting that this is the costume they decided to announce when they announced the new Doctor?" And the exact costume that you mentioned with the orange shirt and like the tweed plaid jacket and plaid pants and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, we have yet to see that one show up. I think maybe it's in the episode that follows Boom. Maybe. I think I saw it in the preview. I could be wrong. It might never show up. But yeah, he's just going to the closet, pulling something new out every time. Ruby is mixing it up as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's we'll see what happens. But I think you're right. I don't think we're ever gonna have that. I mean, there's a style. There's a distinct style. There's not a distinct outfit.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's just part of this Doctor's look is, he's just very fashion forward, fashion conscious, and he just likes to try out new looks and he's going to go through the entire closet and wear, something different every day. It's another change, right? Like that
Yeah.
we've talked about the things that are changing and like the Sonic looks different now and now we have a Doctor who doesn't necessarily have a specific look and these are things that we got so used to as like qualities of the Doctor or certain
Yep.
looks or certain touch points that kind of made it Doctor Who. So I'm sure there's going to be some part of the fandom that's going to be like, oh, I kind of miss the fact that the Doctor had a specific outfit, or you could see a cosplayer. If you go to Comic-Con and you see someone walking down, you'd be like, oh, Doctor Who. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
now, I mean, even Jodie Whittaker, like she had a very distinct, clear costume that if you saw a girl wearing that, you knew that was the Doctor. Now it's kind of like, which one do you pick if you're going to cosplay as the 15th Doctor? Because there's so many different things that he wore. I wonder if maybe they'll come back to some of these initial looks, or maybe like they will have something that's kind of more his costume. But it is a little weird that they kind of went away from that. I kind of liked the fact that the Doctor had something to identify them.
Yeah. I I think it's interesting. And I think that this is one of those things that you could change and argue that you haven't changed a foundational element of the show, right? Like RTD can play with it and no one can be like, "Oh, the essence of Doctor Who has changed." It definitely is a noticeable change, but it's just one of those things that it's hard to be like, "Oh, the costume."
What
Well,
does
then you
make
just seem
what's the formula? Like what
right,
what are the elements, what are the ingredients that make Doctor Who Doctor Who? And I'm sure if you
right,
had that conversation, we could do a whole podcast episode where we discuss our opinions on that. And your list would be different than my list.
right. Yep,
And our
yep.
list would be different than the listeners, and everyone would have a different opinion of like what is these ingredients, or maybe maybe that is the essence of Doctor Who that there aren't ingredients. Like it should change. That's the whole idea of regeneration and things changing is that you don't have specific ingredients that always make up the same thing. You want it to change. So, you know, I don't know. It's an interesting
That's
thing to think about. I kind of want to talk more about it, but we don't want to spend the whole episode talking about that.